Okay, I think it's recording now. So, Sebastian, today we're going to talk about something that's connected to our last conversation. In our last conversation, we talked about how being older can lead to happiness. And one of the reasons it can lead to happiness is because there's certain concepts that we learned, certain things that we now know that improve us in being more successful and happier. So I wanted today to discuss those things. And I ask you to take a look at 10 things that you think are important for your personal success and happiness. And I also looked at 10 things that are important for my own happiness and success. So let me start with, so I guess we're going to go one by one. So I'm going to go talk about one thing, just 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, and then you can talk about one of your 10 items. So let me start. So, or let me maybe give you the whole list, and then we can talk about each item. Okay. So I wrote down 10 things. One, using mind machines, doing fruit and vegetable juicing, the power of the team, working in a team, active listening, the power of the daily task list, organizing things by hierarchical lists, reading books fast, and expanding the mind by traveling to different countries, less is more, and the power of focus, the power of being alone in nature, and the power of high-level thinking, and writing a journal. I think this was 11, but I'm going to drop one. What about your list? Actually, you sent me your list, so if you don't mind, I can read your list.
Yeah.
Or if should I read your list?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So your list, the 10 things that you wrote down are learning from the best in the world, the importance of a morning routine, following your curiosity and passion, learning how to sell online and how to leverage online advertising, the power of reading a lot, the power of creating passive income or income streams instead of selling money, time for money, the power of thinking on paper, gratitude, goals, mindstorming, and journaling, learning programming, being good with words, especially persuasion, and the best life is far from mainstream. Don't do what most people do. So let me start then with my first item, which is mind machines. I discovered mind machines when I was 15 years old. My uncle is a psychologist. I saw a book that was called Mega Brain. I thought it was an interesting title. I took it out, I asked my uncle if I could have it. I read it. It was a fascinating book on machines that are able to influence your mind, to influence your brain waves, to make you more intelligent, get you out of depression, reduce anxiety, strengthen your focus. And I thought, wow, I'm gonna get one of those machines. So I begged my dad for us to go on the next vacation to California. I went to Sausalito in Northern California, went to the main store for mind machines. It was really innovative at the time, and got a mind machine, and have been using mind machines in order to achieve all these things that I mentioned before.
Wow.
Yes.
I didn't know that. This is interesting.
Yeah.
How is that machine? Like, how does it look like?
Well, I mean, there are different kinds of machines. Some work with electrostimulation. I think the most popular ones work with sound and light stimulation. So by having, the thing is, the brain adjusts to the frequency of the light and of the sound it hears. So the combination of light and sound is able to induce certain brain states by changes in brain frequency. So, and to harmonize the both sides both hemispheres of the brain. So you have different kinds of programs that have different effects.
So it's like binaural beats, for example, right?
Let's say binaural beats on steroids, because you have different programs and you have the combination of light and of sound.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So let's go to your list. Learning from the best in the world.
Yeah, that's what I learned from Brian Tracy. That, you know, you can, if you want to learn a skill of any kind, you could just learn it from the best person in your environment, maybe. Just like maybe, I don't know, your brother knows how to do it a bit, so you learn from him or whatever. But the trick is to track down the best people in the world and steal all of their secrets, because then you jump from being nobody to be, you know, on a level that's probably higher than anyone in your country or something. Because normally people don't learn from absolutely best in the world. And maybe it will take you the same amount of time to learn, but you will learn it differently. You will learn like what actually works, where to actually pay attention. There's little tweaks that give you more, you know, value, how to actually think about it, the inner game of it. So I think this is such a amazing thing. Like whatever area you want to master, you need to learn from absolute best people in the world.
Okay. And by the way, it reminds me that you were introduced to me as the Brian Tracy of Poland. So I guess at the time when you were reading Brian Tracy, you were trying not to learn from the best people, best gurus in Poland, but just from the best in the world.
Yeah, I was trying to be the best guru in Poland by learning from the best in the world.
Okay. Next for me is doing fruits and vegetable juices. I started about 20 years ago with eating a lot of fruits. The reason is I liked them, and there was one thing that I liked, and that was healthy. Because a lot of the times I felt like vegetables, I don't naturally had an affinity for vegetables. I liked more candy and some meat, generally not so healthy stuff, processed food. But with fruits and vegetables, well, and especially with fruits, I could see that I actually liked them and they were healthy. So then I mixed fruits and vegetables, and I started creating the different kinds of mixes that were the most healthiest and the most delicious. And then about 5 years ago, I started drinking probably more than 2 liters a day. So probably have, in terms of quantity, more than 50% of my food intake just by fruits and vegetable juices.
Interesting. And how does it make you feel? Hello? Hello, hello? Hello, hello?
Yeah, okay, sorry. The connection was gone. Sorry. Okay, now we are. So you asking how does it influence me?
Yeah, how does it make you feel and such?
Well, it's hard to, I mean, because we both know about the power of the placebo effect. So it's hard for me to, and of course it's also a long-term effect. So it's hard for me to say, well, if I wouldn't have done it over the last 5 years, I would look much older, much less healthy, and would be much less capable mentally. I don't know. But from my own personal experience, limited experience, as well as from what I read about the health benefits, and from my own taste of it and the enjoyment of it, it only has benefits.
Okay.
The next one on your list is morning routine.
Yeah, that's a big one. I also learned it some time ago. Brian Tracy also talks about it, but so does Tony Robbins and other people. I think if you start the day right, if you exercise your body and your mind and you meditate and all of that, that really sets the tone for the rest of the day. So this is a hack, this is a trick, like people don't realize the power of it. So investing 1 hour, 1 hour and a half in the morning into kind of self-care, and also priming yourself and also doing the gratitude and the goals and everything. Just like fine-tuning your subconscious, but also your body with exercise, and then your mind with meditation. This is like profound. And then you are like the best version of yourself for that day, because you took time to kind of warm up all these things and create the focus, and it's just like the vibe. You fine-tune the vibe, and then you are the best, happiest version of yourself for that day, which makes all the difference in the end.
And what does your daily routine, morning routine include? So you mentioned meditation.
So it's like full body workout, the 7-minute workout twice or 3 times. And then there is a cold shower, and there is meditation from Mindvalley, 6 days meditation, takes like 15 minutes. And then it's gratitude, goals, and mind storming. So it's like journaling exercises. And when I exercise, I also listen to audiobooks. So there's a lot packed in a short time.
I was gonna say, because cold shower is already one thing, gratitude is another thing, journaling is another thing. So in this morning routine, it's packed of other important strategies that you use.
Everything at once. Yeah. So I think it's really good, and it's time well spent, because even if something takes 15 minutes, it's not much, like the meditation, that 6 phase meditation, but it's very impactful in many ways. So yeah, I do recommend that.
Okay. Another thing on my list is the power of the team. I realized how important it is to work in a team. So if I, for example, don't have a team because I'm working on a certain thing by myself, I'm trying to at least have an assistant, with the main benefit not being that the assistant can take work that I delegate to the assistant, but that I just have somebody that I can talk to about what I'm working on, because I feel that I'm personally more focused when I'm working with somebody else. And also the idea that it's really not, if you it's not so much in a company, it's never much about one person. For any company, you might have, depending on the size of the company, 10 hundreds or thousands of people. So one person is not able to influence much. And the kind of paradigm we get from school is that we have to do everything ourselves, because if we collaborate with other people, or we have our secretary do stuff for us, it's called cheating. But in business, that's what you're supposed to do. If you're supposed to get the best people to do the work for you, and you're supposed to work together with the best people. So it's a different paradigm from university and from school. And I think I think some people, I had been missing this paradigm, and I understood it's very important not to think about the problem and how to solve a problem yourself, but how you can solve it with a team.
Very interesting, powerful. Yeah.
Okay. So then next on your list is following your curiosity and passion, and anything that will easily give you flow.
Yeah, I think this is the easy route. Like, you could be forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do, or you could be going with your own mental flow of curiosity, and then flow happens automatically because you're so captivated by the subject, and you can go deeper than other people who don't share that passion. So if you're competing in the marketplace, but you have the passion and they don't, usually you will be able to, be more patient and be more in depth, and it's just fun. It's like doing what you love. I mean, what can be better than that?
So basically, can we understand it as, you don't necessarily want to work on what makes the most amount of money, but you want to make sure that what you're working on is also something you're passionate about.
Yeah, and I think it will be changing over the lifetime, and you might be passionately curious about so many different things over your lifetime, and maybe one of those things, there you will see an opportunity, and it's like you are one idea away from making a lot of money. So I wouldn't stress that much about the industries that make a lot of money or whatever, because once you become like expert in many different areas, you can see the connections between the areas and opportunities within the area, and then go from there.
Okay. Okay, so next on my list of those important things that we learned is active listening. I found it very powerful in so many different ways. When I'm responding to a friend who is feeling down, has a problem, when I'm trying to persuade somebody to do something, always is always the key to have more listening than speaking and have active listening. Active listening means, of course, listening and focusing on what the other person is saying, trying to understand the other person, but it also means actively doing this by paraphrasing what the other person has said or even mirroring what the other person has said, and by verbalizing or labeling the other person's emotions. And I've seen it's really powerful in making other people realize what their problems are and feel better about their problems or about themselves. This is something that psychologists use a lot in the counseling therapy, and I've been using it, at the beginning when I was starting to use it, I was 15, 16 years old. I found it very powerful. And since then it has become second nature, but I still can see how powerful it is and how much I'm helped if other people do this to me. Actively.
I think you are like the master of that. From everyone that I know, you do it probably the best, and it feels amazing to be on the receiving end of that. So it's amazing, and I think it's also good for dating. If you, instead of trying to impress the girl and like talk about how amazing you are fully connecting in the moment with her, then it's power.
Yes. So going on to the next thing on your list, the power of online selling and using online advertising for leverage.
Yeah, I think most people don't realize that this is a total game changer. Normally, if you have a store in a city, you rely on the traffic on that street. Whereas if you have, let's say, a store online, you can reach everyone and in different countries. And if you have some good offer and you know how to sell people stuff, then you can make pretty much unlimited amount of money. And you can do it while you sleep because you can design a system that will do it for you. So I think for people who are analytical, who are quite intelligent, who can figure out how those complex things work, this is like the ultimate form of leverage. It's kind of very unlimited in every way you can imagine. So learning that might make you financially free. And yeah, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. And I guess you have acquired the skill and now you're a master in acquiring users online, and that has been able to guarantee you a passive stream of income.
Well, since I was 22, I do kind of live off of passive income generated in that way. I'm not necessarily the best in the world in it, but I'm good enough so that it works well enough in it.
Yeah, I see more and more people that are one, now due to COVID, the fact that they can, or they that online businesses are booming while offline businesses are going down. And second, that digital nomads, that they just want to travel. And I see a lot of them focusing on marketing. If either marketing a product and selling a product and having passive income that way, or being an agency and doing marketing services for other companies.
Very true.
Okay, so the next one on my list is the power of the daily task list. Or generally saying the project management system. So I think since early 2000s, I had a lot of things going on in my life in terms of private responsibilities, still at university, as well as already working on businesses. And I was trying to do things extremely fast. So I was getting on a lot of work, a lot of responsibility. So it was hard to manage everything. And so what I discovered is that being able to organize it and knowing every single moment what I have to focus on made it much more effective for me. So what I did first, I wrote it on paper. I planned my long-term goals, and then I broke them down into smaller projects and tasks. And then every day I would look at this and say, this is what I want to do today. And about more than 10 years ago, I started discovering project management systems, not only for my work life, but also for my private life. So everything that I want to do in my private life, even meeting a friend, even calling a friend to a birthday, anything that I want to do in my private life is written in that list. And I plan the week. And then I plan from that weekly task list, I plan every single day. And that I think is the only way possible that I can handle a large amount of tasks that I'm working on.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and so for you, one of the things you wrote down is reading a lot. I guess this ties into the first one, which is learning from the best in the world.
As well, but it's just about also, like for INTPs, the natural thing to do is to create like a map of how reality works. And seeing that allows you to innovate because you can create mental experiments. What if we did this and this? What if we took strategy from industry number one, applied it in industry number two? What would happen? So if you understand how it works, which books help you do, then you are a powerful innovator, but also you're good at crisis management. So you can imagine like, okay, if there is lockdown, what will happen? What's the chain of reactions? How do complex systems react to change because you have it all mapped out in your head. So I think this is like value in books, deep understanding of different domains and the relationships between things, and you know.
Okay. So do you recommend it for INTPs, or do you recommend it also for anybody generally?
I think I recommend it for.
One more question: Do you think when you say reading a lot, one of the things that I discovered, I mean, there were some people who say reading books, and some people say you don't need to read a book. It's okay if you read blogs. And some people would say, well, you don't really need to read a book. It's okay if you have an audiobook, or it's okay if you have your video. So does it matter how you get the content, or can you just choose the way you get, if it's audio or video, can you just get it the way that you want to get it?
You can get it the way you want to get it, but I don't believe that much in blog posts, for example, because for articles, they are too short. The beauty of the book, even if it's one idea in one book, is that this idea will sink very deeply into you. Like after reading this book that had just one idea, you will have this idea in your brain really. Whether when you read the article, you will learn it for 5 minutes and then you will completely forget about it forever. So I think audiobooks, books, and books are also written with much more care. Like someone spends a year maybe researching and putting together this book, and maybe it's summarizing 20 years of life experience in some domain. And this is like pure gold. This is like so valuable.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. So I mean, I agree. I agree generally with reading. I agree with learning from the best, getting content from others. One of the things that I also do is when I do get good content, no matter what kind of content it is, if it's a video, blog post, or a book, I would not only read it, but I would then absorb it in the sense that I would reread it, make notes, and then make my own notes, and then structure it, and then try to add some of my own knowledge to it, so that I really make sure that I get the knowledge into my brain.
Very interesting.
Now, coming to one of the things that I also wrote down is traveling, or I wouldn't say maybe traveling, living in other countries, other cultures, in order to expand your mind. It was actually at a very early age, when I was 15 years old. My mother had passed away. I was thinking about what I should do with my life, and I thought, okay, let's have a mission in my life. And one of the things in my life I want to do is to experience as much as possible. And I wrote down at the time that meant for me to be with as many different people as possible, but also in as many different cultures and countries as possible. And I kind of stuck to that, in the sense that shortly afterwards, I went to the US to study in the US high school. And since then, I haven't really stopped traveling to different cultures, spending time in the US, of course, in New York, in San Francisco, in Puerto Rico, in Brazil, in France, in Italy, in the UK, in China, and in India. And I do, and the experience I had when I was spending a year in the US was that I came back and I was, I would say, a different person. Now, if you, of course, you always change, but I felt the change that I had undergone in this 1 year living in a US family at a US high school, spending time with US friends, had changed me more. And I felt change was good. And you could see just by being with other people that are very different from you, you can see different things. And the reason why I don't call it traveling is because I do think there's a big difference between just traveling to a country as a tourist or even as a digital nomad and living with other expats, which is of course nice. You also meet a lot of interesting people. But I think it's different from actually living in another country like a local. So what I've generally tried to do is to live in a different country like a local. So when I have gone to China, most expats in China, they live with the expats in China. And what I try to do is to live with the locals, to go to the parties of the locals, to really meet the locals and not meet the expats, to really try to absorb the culture, the language as much as possible. And I do think that this, you could say, expanded my mind.
That's for sure. Very interesting. Actually, I was thinking about it as well, and two big discoveries that I made that changed my life happened abroad as well. I was in Ireland for Erasmus, and that's where I stumbled upon internet marketing as a thing and completely captivated me for many years later. And the another thing was when I was in Panama studying Spanish, I came up with the concept for my business. So maybe it would happen if I was studying Spanish in Poland as well, but maybe not. So I see the element there of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So on your list, next is creating sources of income. Let's call it passive income instead of selling time for money.
Yeah, this was a big mindset shift that I got from Robert Kiyosaki early on. And I think this is so profound because most people will go and sell their time at a job. Some people will open their own business, but they will do services, personal services. So they will still trade time for money. And then there will be those people who will like build a system that generates money while they sleep. And it doesn't necessarily take that much more time or energy or whatever. It's just the mindset shift. Like, where do you apply yourself, your intelligence, your time, and what model are you using? And then the consequences can be dramatically different. So you can have like freedom of your time, location, and that's very valuable.
Yeah, I think that's very valuable. I would emphasize what you said, that there are a lot of people that are going, especially now with COVID, a lot of people thinking about creating a business, but many of them are actually not really creating a business. I mean, legally they have a business, but it's a business about selling their time. It's a consultancy business where they're still legally working as a business, but in fact they're selling their time. And businesses, if you have a system which you create once, and then it's a system that creates the money for you, or you build not only a system like you have done with your business, but you create a system with a team which potentially can earn you generally a large amount of money, and you still don't have to, if you create a right system, you don't have to continue working on it.
And the big distinction, I think, is that you need to be selling products rather than services. And those products, if they are electronic, then you don't pay anything to copy the product, to store the product. And this is like the ultimate form of leverage, selling online products online.
Right. I would add though that if you are alone, it's about selling a product, because if you're alone and creating and selling a service, then you're selling it yourself. But if you have a team, you can sell a service, but it's not yourself who is creating the service, but it's your team members that are selling the service. And you are basically also creating a passive income stream because you set up the team once and then the team works under you.
The only difference is that if you sell a product, it's infinitely scalable, whereas your team will have to have certain flow of orders that will keep them busy. But if you have 500 times that, you won't be able to service it. And if you have less than that, you will have to fire some members of the team. So it's not that easily scalable. So that's the only difference.
Okay. And I also would want to add that sometimes you create a business which is not necessarily generating a passive income, which means you have to work in it, or people have to work in it. But by creating the business, you're creating a value. And as a shareholder of the business, you can then sell your shares or even sell the business, and you can create a large amount of money. So while I've seen some people that have become millionaires in the hundreds of millions, having just a product business and creating passive income streams, like for example, I would say Eben Pagan probably made over 100 million. There are very few. I've seen more people in my direct circle of friends who've become millionaires in the hundreds of millions, who have created a business, gotten investors' money, created companies that are worth more than $1 billion, not creating necessarily a passive income stream, but just selling the shares and making just by selling the shares hundreds of millions.
Yeah, that's possible as well.
Okay, so next on my list is focus, less being more. Many times we think that to be successful, we have to take on a lot of responsibilities. We have to do a lot of things. So in order to have a better product, it needs to do more. In order to be more successful as a business, in business, your business has to do more. You have to do more as a person to be more successful. But many times what I found out is more you focus on very few areas in order to be more successful. Steve Jobs very famously said, people think that it's about success is about doing things and doing things the right way, but it's really about cutting out things, because you become successful if you cut out things. And I've seen the two be true in my own life, and so I try to apply it to different areas. So, for example, I made a friend inventory. I looked at all my Facebook friends, all my LinkedIn contacts, all my Instagram friends, as well as the friends that I messaged with. And I made a list of 150 people, or probably more. And I then classified in order to have a list classified and know who my the best friends are. And in order to make sure that I stay in touch with these people, and at the same time, knowing that if I want to stay in touch with everyone in spending the same amount of time, that won't work. I would have too much responsibilities, too many friends, too many contacts. So I had to focus on just the most important people. And the same with hobbies. I was getting into many different hobbies: badminton, basketball, soccer, table tennis, and dancing, Zumba, merengue, salsa, forró. And I was taking up more and more. And I thought, no, you don't want to take up more and more. You want to focus on certain things. And the important thing is that focus really is about saying no. It's not about saying yes to certain things. It's about saying no to other things. So I said no to bachata. I said no to kizomba. I said, okay, I won't be able to do everything, so I'm just going to say no.
Yeah, I think in business also it works like this. The companies that don't become very successful, I think, are the companies that take a mediocre idea and try to implement it. I think we should be super selective about the ideas we actually decide to implement, and they should have like incredible potential on many, levels. Otherwise, even if we implement it and even if it works, it's going to work not that well. So it's a waste of time many times. So I think being selective around ideas that you execute, that's very important as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. And then in fact, people say it's not about the idea, it's about the team. What I've seen in my own personal experience of hundreds of entrepreneurs working on business ideas, that in fact it's actually more about the idea or the project they're working on than about the people. Mm-hmm. I've seen people that are not so, that I didn't think were very smart or very hardworking, but they're working on the right project at the right time, which investors wanted. And investors gave them money, and with the money, they were able to hire the best people, and they succeeded. At the same time, I saw people that I considered and still consider brilliant, very hardworking, working on a not proven business idea that was not going so well, as you said, a mediocre idea that maybe they found it was mediocre, but then they wanted to continue, and they continued and continued and continued, and they maybe wasted 5 years of their life working on something that, while it didn't fail, it didn't really succeed as they had expected. And they were, I'd say, wasting their potential.
Exactly.
So as you say, yes, I think many times it's about the project they're working on, and to be very selective.
It's hard because, like, when you have some ideas, it's easy to fall in love with the idea and maybe think that you will not have a better idea tomorrow. And sometimes you will just be best off not doing anything rather than jumping on the wrong idea. It's like Warren Buffett sitting on a pile of money and not investing this money unless he finds a really good deal. And good deals are hard to find, and you need to reject a lot of bad deals. So it's the same principle.
Exactly. And I even though it's logical and it's logically true, and it's, if you look at it, it seems to be clear. I see a lot of people are still making the mistake that they're spreading themselves too thinly. I think one of the good ways to look at it is as the opportunity cost. And just as you mentioned, Warren Buffett, he explains that if we see a good investment, which gives us a good return, we will not invest unless we think it's as good as another investment we've made. Because if the other investment has a high return, then we should rather focus on that investment and put in more money rather than putting it in a new investment. And the same really applies to time investment, that everyone does 24 hours a day. Every single second, we are deciding how we're spending our time. And the question is not, well, I have time to do it. Yes, I have time. No. What is the second activity that you could be doing right now? And do you think there's anything else that you could be doing right now that has a higher return on investment? And if so, then you shouldn't be doing what you're doing right now.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg was saying that he's using this focusing question of, like, what's the best use of my time right now? Best possible use, right? It's a good one.
Right. Okay, so on your list next is thinking on paper, gratitude, goals, mindstorming, and journaling.
Yeah, I think it's a big help for our subconscious mind to, for example, pull stuff out of our mind, put it on paper, whether it is even like what your to-do list, like having time management systems as well, so that you don't stress about it, you don't try to keep it on your head, right? But also getting clarity. What do I want? What's possible in this project? What's the plan? Blah, blah, blah. And then also going from paper back to your mind by rewriting your goals, by affirmations, by gratitude as well as one of those things, right? So you kind of pull stuff out, maybe organize it on paper, and then kind of feed it back in so that you're primed with the right ideas, with the right vibe, with the right frame of mind And this is like really powerful, and paper
I
helps a lot.
agree. Yes, I agree. It's also one of the things that I learned. Yes. When you're, and it has several benefits. One you're saying is you're getting more clarity. So when you're writing something down, you're getting more clear on it, and it helps you to actually think. And you get more ideas. When you're writing down certain ideas, you get more ideas on it. Another thing is, of course, you don't lose your ideas, because you ideas can be come in, go out, come in, go out. And then when you write them down, you know, okay, they're there. And also important is the emotional benefit. When you have, for example, anger, and you want to get anger out of your system, you can write down with whom you're angry, why you're angry. And there's this technique called a forgiveness letter, where you're writing a forgiveness letter. I forgive you, and you write it down. And you don't even have to send off the letter. It's just writing it, forgiving somebody, and writing it down to get the anger out of your system.
It generally helps to be less emotional about things as well. So people thought that, oh, if you have had some traumatic experience, just talk about it and it will help you. It will not. Talk is too emotional. Talk is too like spontaneous. If you write about it, on the other hand, you have to put it in the right words. You have to put it in coherent sentences, and you build certain distance, so you become less emotional and more logical about it, and it can actually heal you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Agreed. Next on my list, writing a journal. Since, again, about 15 years old is when I came up with the idea that I wanted to write things down. And since that time, I wrote things down. And I write things down every single week since then, pretty much. So per year, I write about 100 pages. And so I'm creating my own, you can call it autobiography. And I feel, and people ask me, so why are you writing it down? I mean, you already lived it. Why do you want to write it down? And I feel, if I live it for 24 hours a day, why wouldn't I want to spend 5 minutes just to write it down, what I experienced during these 24 hours? Because this 24 hours is a lot of time, and it should be valuable, so I should just write it down. And it has the practical benefit of being able to go back. I can go back and take out the year 2004, and I see everything I lived through in 2004. Just as people say, history serves us to learn from our mistakes and to not repeat it.
Yeah.
And I think our personal history serves us to analyze it, and then to learn from our mistakes, and to see what kind of patterns we had in the past. So, and also, why would I want to read a novel if I could read through my own life and see and go back to all the memories that I had, or all the things that I lived through in my life. And finally, I would say it helps me to see my life as a mission, and to be able to be the author of the book that I'm writing. And I can make the story more interesting by living it more interesting, so that I can write down something more interesting.
Very interesting. So it's like almost like legacy, right? You are in touch with your legacy. You're in touch with what's happening, and you see how it sounds as a story, and then you're like, maybe this is a boring story. Maybe I need to do something more interesting or something bigger or whatever. Interesting.
Exactly.
So you live with like awareness of what's happening with you, and you
Exactly.
analyze it.
That's the goal. Of course, you want to be aware, but it's very difficult. And that's actually the next point that I have, but I'm gonna get to your point next. But it's about being aware, getting into this awareness. But go to your next point. Is persuasion, or generally being good with words, communication.
Yeah, I think there's a big component of personality in that. Not everyone will be that skilled. I guess at this, it has something to do with clarity of thinking as well, and the natural like abilities in terms of languages and so on. But I think if you can make a really persuasive argument, or if you understand how people make decisions, buying decisions, for example, or any decision, then you can become so much more effective. And yeah, communicating simple words that people actually can understand, but also maybe understanding how to manage their attention, how to get their attention, how to make them curious about something, how to tell them something that they didn't know, but is really valuable for them.
Mm-hmm.
These are the steps to kind of get them to fully listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can direct it in the way you want, really. Like if you can
Mm-hmm.
create, for example, a webinar, you can get strangers to spend a lot of money on your product by using words correctly.
Mm-hmm. So specifically, you were talking about persuasion. Do you think it's persuasion via verbal communication or also persuasion via written communication, copywriting?
Of course, by written communication. Like that's mostly what I would
Oh,
do.
okay.
Yeah, totally. And it's basically about understanding also how framing works, how you can put an idea in the context of other ideas so that it's more persuasive, so it makes more sense. Maybe starting from something very general, like, hey, is it good to make a lot of money? Yes. If you speak English, will you make a lot of money? Yes. Okay. Blah blah blah. And if you know you have like 5 yeses, and then your product is on the sixth yes, they will be very likely to buy, for example.
Yeah. And generally, I have found that the number one skills, apart from the skills that we currently mentioned, the number one skills for success, independent of what you're working on, and that's both success in private life as well as success in your in your business life or career life, is our communication skills.
Mm-hmm.
And that is communication skills on how to listen to somebody's problem, how to start a conversation with somebody, meaning small talk, how to persuade somebody, how to be a public speaker, how to negotiate, how to have a crucial conversation with somebody, how to do copywriting. It's all about communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason is because if we want to be successful or we want to be happy, we can't do it ourselves. We always depend on other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to influence other people to do what we want, and we can't do it by gun, we can't do it by force. We have to do it by communication. That's the way we influence other people.
And we need to structure it in a win-win situation as well, so that everyone wins in the end.
Right. So, my last point is walking in nature alone, or generally getting to a higher level of awareness, because when I'm working in nature alone, I'm generally able to get to a high level of awareness. What I mean is that we have the state where we are asleep, and we have the state when we are awake. But the first time I went out and I came into the state, which I call the higher level of awareness state, I felt almost like I had been asleep all my life. So that I was now making three categories: the real awareness state, which happens very rarely, then the state of awareness, which we're not really aware, and then the state where we're sleeping. What I mean was not being really aware is that we don't really think about what we do. I feel that we are more actors in a game, and we don't really control consciously what we do. So when we are born, and we're just a little child, a little kid, and then we don't really. I mean, we can say yes, we know what we're doing, and we're consciously aware, we are awake, but we don't have this control about what is it that we want to do in our life. Why are we doing these things? We don't think about these things. We just do. And rarely do people actually question everything, question their whole life, question why are they here, question what is it that they're supposed to do. And for me, I can point to one day. There was when I was probably again 15 or 16 years old, that I had come back from the US. I was kind of thinking about what I should do. And I made a long bike tour by myself for about 3 hours. And I was in nature doing this bike tour all by myself, riding along a river. And then I asked a lot of these questions, these deeper questions. And I felt I was coming to a higher level of awareness. I felt this was the first time when I could freely think that everything else that I'd done before was more like a routine. That of course I have to get up because there's school, and of course I have to go to school, and of course I have to learn because I have to get good grades, and because I'm going to eat because I'm hungry. So it's either an instinct or it's a routine. It's a certain social environment where people expect me to do a certain thing. But I kind of thought about, hey, I'm kind of free. I'm outside. I don't have to follow this routine. And since then, I've always tried to ensure that I have these moments when I generally go on a mountain, and I'm trying to be alone on a mountain, overlooking everyone else, and being outside this the social influence of other people, and trying to think about my life, always focusing on the knowledge that I'm going to die, and that my life is limited, and what I'm supposed to do in this time that I have on Earth. And one of the things that then I started doing more than 20 years back is every single year, at least once a year, on the 31st of December, I will generally attend a party, and about an hour or 2 hours before midnight, I will leave that party. I'll take my bike or my car and go to a place where I can be alone, hopefully on a mountain or in a forest. And while everybody else is celebrating in the new year, I want to think about what I've done during the past year, and I want to plan for the next year. And I generally come back, let's say 1 o'clock, join the party. But I had this 2 to 3 hours where I could think for myself, being alone, not being with anybody else, and just thinking about my mission in life.
Yeah, I think that's the power also of not having distractions. You are alone, so no one is requesting your time, and you don't have to do this and that. So you can go deeper and deeper within and distance yourself from everyday nonsense and just kind of have this view from the top, right, at your life as well. Very useful, very powerful. Nature helps. I think nature has this calming vibe as well. Naturally puts us at ease.
Yes. And the last point on your list is not to follow everyone else, what everyone else is doing, but because everyone else is not on the right path, so find your own way.
That's very counterintuitive, because normally there's a social proof, right? What should I do? What everyone else is doing. They must know something that I don't know, so it's natural. But it's a good observation to make that most people will not get amazing results in any area of life. And that means that they will have basically average and mediocre results because they do what everyone else is doing. And people who have amazing results are usually doing the opposite of what everyone else is doing. So I don't know, instead of working for money, they have their money working for them, or this kind of things, or they don't follow traditional relationship models, or they don't follow traditional medicine type of approach of just like masking the symptoms, but they want to understand how the body works, how lifestyle affects it, and all of that. So there's always so much depth in all those areas, and you can discover it, study it, and then also study from the best people in the world, like I mentioned before. And that's how you get amazing results, not by following what everyone else is doing.
Yes, I agree. I do think that this has a little bit to do with your personality type. INTP personality type, just as the same as me. I've thought about this, and I have to say that my host mom, I mean, the family I lived with in Chicago, she noticed that I would many times go against the flow. I would not accept common conventions. I would question them, and I would often go against the flow. And we would have an discussion about it, where she was saying, "Look, it's always better to go with the flow." And I was saying, "Well, if the flow is right, then yes. But if the flow is not right, then you should make up your own mind." Now, in hindsight, I do believe that sometimes it would have been better for me to go with the flow. And many times I've seen that the most successful people are not necessarily going against the flow. They are many times going with the flow. And those people that become successful are actually the exception, not the norm. For example, if you look at billionaires or multi-hundreds of millionaires in Silicon Valley, you would see that most of the people didn't become entrepreneurs because they just wanted to go against the flow, or because they had this idea and nobody believed in them, and then they did it anyway. But they were people that just had a group of friends that were maybe working at a company, and then they joined a certain company, and they were just doing what everybody else was doing. There was not much going against the flow. They were just joining what everybody else was doing. They were just on the right wave. So I think the concept of riding a certain wave with the other people and having a group of people going in the same direction is more likely to lead to success many times financially, and also making you happier, because you have this group of people that you're a subgroup that is going in a certain way, while when you're going alone, it's much harder and it's less likely to result in a large amount of financial success.
It depends also to what degree you like freedom, and to what degree you want to be influenced by other people and controlled by other people, and have to do what other people want. Because in those environments, you don't have much freedom. Like, you have to be there. You have to work 14-hour days in Silicon Valley or whatever, and your startup might,